After sleeping with one woman, a low-level crack dealer making $20 to $100 a day, he became a multimillionaire in less than 30 days. Here's how that happened. His name was Charles Cosby, East Oakland, California, Brookfield Village, one of the roughest corners of one of the roughest cities in America. He wasn't special, not yet. He wasn't moving weight. He wasn't running a crew. He wasn't the man everybody feared on the block. He was moving ounces. He made a couple $1,000s a week if the week was good. If the week was bad, he made $20, maybe $100, maybe nothing. While he was doing that, other men in that same city were dying for corners. They were going to prison for years. They were losing everything they built over and over again just to start from zero. They were grinding. Cosby found a shortcut. Not a corner, not a gun, not a deal with a rival or an alliance with a supplier. A letter. He wrote one letter to a woman sitting in a federal prison in Northern California. A woman he had never met. A woman 20 years older than him. A woman who had personally overseen the murder of her own 3 husbands. A woman the DEA considered the most dangerous drug trafficker in American history. Griselda Blanco, the cocaine godmother. 30 days after that letter was written, 50 kilograms of cocaine showed up at Cosby's front door. A month after that, he was a millionaire. He was running her $40 million a year empire from Oakland. The streets will tell you there are rules to this game, that you have to earn it, that you have to bleed for it. Charles Cosby found a different rule entirely, and it worked. You cannot understand how insane this story is without understanding who Griselda Blanco actually was. She was not a local kingpin. She was not a regional supplier. She was a Colombian-born woman who had built one of the largest cocaine empires in the history of the Western Hemisphere. And she did it while ordering the murders of everyone who stood in her way, including 3 of her own husbands. By the time the 1980s came around, Griselda Blanco had flooded Miami with so much cocaine that the city's medical examiner ran out of space for the bodies. Not the bodies she killed directly, but the bodies that piled up because of the war she started. The Miami Cocaine Wars. Bodies stacked so high that Dade County had to bring in a refrigerated truck from Burger King to store the overflow. She invented the motorcycle assassination. Hitmen on motorcycles pulled alongside targets in traffic. That method spread through cartels around the world. She created it. Pablo Escobar, the man who terrified an entire country, respected Griselda Blanco the way men respect people they are quietly afraid of. In February of 1985, the DEA finally caught her in Irvine, California. Arrested, charged, convicted, sentenced to 15 years in federal prison in Northern California. The government assumed that was the end of her empire. It wasn't. She ran the whole operation from her prison cell. Phone calls, letters, coded messages through visitors, supply lines still running, money still moving. The organization still breathing. She just needed someone on the outside she could trust to be her face. That someone turned out to be a 24-year-old crack dealer from Oakland who had the nerve to write her a fan letter. 1985. Cosby sees the news story about Griselda's arrest. He is floored. Years later, he would say that he had never known of a woman who sold drugs, much less on that level. She was a billionaire. He does not forget her name. 6 years pass, 1991. He is at a relative's house in Los Angeles when he meets a Panamanian woman named Manuela. She mentions casually that she used to work for Griselda Blanco in New York and Miami. Cosby sees the opening immediately. He asks Manuela to arrange an introduction. She reaches out to Griselda inside the prison. She tells her that there is a black man from Oakland who respects her and wants to make contact. Griselda, a woman who had survived decades in the most dangerous business on earth by being suspicious of everything, tells Manuela she will wait for his call. Cosby calls her 2 days later. He is a 20-something crack dealer from Brookfield Village on the phone with the cocaine godmother. She is cautious. She asks him why he wants to meet, what he wants, and what he is expecting from her. He tells her he respects her, admires what she built, and wants to learn and work. She says, "Come visit." He drove to that prison and sat across from Griselda Blanco for the first time. He would describe it years later. "When I first set eyes on her, it was surreal. I don't know if you've been to a Rolling Stones concert, but the electricity was comparable." She was in her late 40s. He was in his early 20s. She had hazel eyes, a beautiful smile, and deep dimples. She looked at him and asked one question: "How much money do you need to make your family comfortable?" 3 days later, a woman Cosby had never seen before knocked on his door in Oakland. She handed him 50 kilograms of cocaine. No paperwork, no formal agreement, no terms discussed. 50 kilograms on his doorstep from the most powerful drug network in California, because he had said the right things and looked the right woman in the eye. A month later, Charles Cosby was a millionaire. Here is what 45 days changed about Charles Cosby's life. Before Griselda, he handled ounces, worked corners, and made a couple $1,000s a week if he was fortunate. After Griselda, he was her entire California distribution network. The product coming through him was 95% pure cocaine. He was not selling retail anymore. He was supplying wholesalers who supplied the streets, moving product in bricks across Oakland and beyond, feeding into a network that the federal government would later calculate was generating $40 million a year. $40 million a year through one man in Oakland who 6 weeks earlier was making $100 on a good day. He bought a 5,000 square foot home in the Oakland Hills with a view of the entire city spread out below him. And Griselda, still in her federal prison cell, was watching all of it. 3 to 4 visits from Cosby every single week. Phone calls, letters, instructions passed through intermediaries. She was managing her empire from behind concrete walls, and she had found exactly the right piece to move on the board. But here is what nobody tells you about being the most important piece on Griselda Blanco's board. She did not just want a business partner. She wanted loyalty, total, absolute. The kind of loyalty that her 3 dead husbands had failed to provide. She paid the prison guards $1,500 per visit so that she and Cosby could have time alone together in a storage room. 100 times. Cosby later told Vlad TV that it was like having sex with a 21-year-old off the street without a single moment of hesitation. The cocaine godmother, one of the most feared human beings alive, was running a $40 million empire from a federal prison cell, and she was paying guards $1,500 a visit to be alone with a man half her age from Oakland. The relationship was real, which meant the consequences of betraying it were also very real. Charles Cosby, young and rich and running Oakland, eventually started seeing another woman on the side. Griselda found out. She hired a private investigator to track him, and the investigator uncovered everything. The other woman, the lies, the deceit. Griselda made a phone call to her son Michael Corleone Blanco, the 12-year-old boy Cosby had grown close to during his prison visits. She told him to set Cosby up. Then she ordered the Haiti. Cosby was driving his Corvette in California one afternoon, 2 miles from his mother's house, when a Mustang pulled alongside him. 2 men were inside, and they opened fire. He was wearing a bulletproof vest that absorbed 4 bullets. He survived. Here is the detail that tells you everything you need to know about what this relationship actually was. After the hit, Griselda summoned him back to the prison. He went. He sat across from the woman who had just ordered his assassination. They apologized to each other. She said sorry. He said sorry. And then they kept working together, because $40 million a year has a way of putting attempted murder in perspective. 1995. Griselda's former hitman, Jorge Rivi Ayala, has agreed to testify against her in connection with murders she ordered. She is potentially facing the death penalty. She needs out of prison. She calls Cosby. She has a plan. She wants to kidnap John F. Kennedy Jr., the son of the most beloved president in American history, the man every magazine in the country had been calling the most eligible bachelor alive, the man whose wedding had stopped the nation. Griselda Blanco, from inside a federal prison cell, wanted to snatch John F. Kennedy Jr. off the street and use him as a hostage to negotiate her release. And she was asking Charles Cosby to help make it happen. Cosby had survived bullets for this woman, had built her empire from nothing, had visited her in prison 100 times, had made millions from her operation. But this was the moment he understood exactly who he was dealing with. He walked away. He severed ties. He told her he was out. The case against Griselda collapsed anyway, not because of anything Cosby did. It fell apart when it emerged that her own hitman, Rivi Ayala, had been conducting phone sex calls with secretaries in the Florida State Attorney's office while in custody. The prosecution was compromised beyond repair. Griselda served her time. She was released in 2004, deported back to Colombia. Cosby was subpoenaed to testify against her. He sat before prosecutors and told them she was making $2 million a year. The real number was $100 million. Nobody could prove otherwise. He walked. September 3rd, 2012. Medellin, Colombia. Griselda Blanco walks out of a butcher shop. A man on a motorcycle pulls up alongside her. He shoots her in the head. She dies at 69 years old, killed by the exact same method she had invented for her own victims decades before. The cocaine godmother. The woman who built a $2 billion empire. The woman who had ordered the deaths of 3 of her own husbands. The woman who had run her operation from a prison cell using a 20-something crack dealer from Oakland as her hands. Dead on a street in Medellin. Killed the way she killed. Charles Cosby was alive when it happened. Still talking. Still telling the story. He wrote a book in 2021, Hustling with the Godmother. He went on Vlad TV. He went on ITV. He told anyone who would listen about the woman who changed his life in 30 days. Netflix made a series about Griselda starring Sofia Vergara. Charles Cosby was not in it. He watched all 6 episodes anyway. He said Vergara had nailed her mannerisms. He said watching it was like looking at Griselda Blanco all over again. He described her the same way every single time he was asked. Hazel eyes, beautiful smile, deep dimples. The most dangerous woman alive. And the reason a crack dealer from Brookfield Village in East Oakland who was making $100 a day became a millionaire in 30 days. Not because he was the hardest man on the block. Not because he grinded for 20 years. Not because he shot anybody or took anybody's corner or out-hustled every man around him. Because he wrote one letter, said the right things, and looked the right woman in the eye without flinching. Subscribe to Bloody Reports. There are 1,000 stories like this one that nobody has told the right way yet. This was one of them.